I thought about what I'd done to you and it all went wrong. But of course, your situation was that snooker wasn't around when you started on World of Sport, so you came into snooker cold, really.
I did, in a sense, although I have to tell you, snooker did appear, I think, on the very first World of Sport. Eamon Andrews was the presenter.
All right.
And a John Bromley, who you know anyway, he was the first editor of the World of Sport. And they couldn't decide what they were going to call the programme, and there was an American programme called The Wide World of Sport. And Bromley had this association of America, and he thought, what a good name for a programme, Wide World of Sport. So they sat down in Eamon's home, they used to have production meetings there, and they sat down and they looked at the fair for the first programme. And it was wrestling from Croydon, racing from Sandown Park, swimming from Crystal Palace, snooker from the National Level Club, and football from somewhere, you know. And they realised that they weren't going north of Watford, so they could really call it the Wide World of Sport. And Eamon looked at this, he said, Jesus, what an international extravaganza this is. And eventually, of course, it was just World of Sport, and that's the way it was. But it grew in stature right the way through the 20 years that I was there, anyway.
And of course, although obviously BBC were doing something at the same time on a Saturday.
Oh, I mean, they were strong.
They were strong as well. But I mean, so many people at that time were tuning in to watch you. You were to many people the familiar face on a Saturday. You were their friend. Excuse me. You were their friend on a Saturday.
I think that's fair. I think you became part of the furniture. You know, you were in a box, and you were there on the dressing table or whatever it was, or the dresser, and you were in their home for 4.5 hours.
So was there a responsibility? It was live, obviously.
Yeah.
All the live links.
Sure.
Responsibility to welcome people in. I mean, as somebody who's interviewed, presenting's different to interview. You've done that as well. So
a lot of people feel that in the back of your mind is the fact that there are 6 or 9 or 10 or 2 million watching you. You never think of that at all. I think the idea is to think of a room, a living room, and a few people around the box, if you have to think of anything at all. And imagine you're talking to 1 or 2 people at the time. And you must be yourself. You mustn't over-project on television, because it becomes glaringly obvious that you're doing it. So you really got to be yourself and not, you know, speak and behave as you normally would do.
What about, I mean, I was a massive fan of wrestling. And I don't know why. No, well, I did. No,
millions of people were.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
well, I was a massive. You know, it was part of.
Still are, I think.
Part of World of Sport.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you had to present something that, in its effect, was stage managed. That wasn't really a sport, but was athletic.
Absolutely. Okay. It was an entertainment. We regarded it very much as an entertainment. And of course, from my point of view, we'd do the half-time roundup at about 3:45. And that would build up to the wrestling at 4 o'clock. And from 4 o'clock onwards, I'd have to do 3 or 4 links into 3 or 4 bouts. And then while the wrestling was on, I was actually getting ready for the results service, which started at about 20 to 5. And I mean, I wasn't the greatest wrestling fan, I have to tell you, because I didn't regard it very much as a sport. But then if you've got 5 or 6 million people watching you, then, you know, that's good, because you take that audience through for the rest of the evening on ITV. So it's very important. And dear old Kent Walton used to do all the commentary, and he would never, ever betray that it was anything but...
He sold it very well, didn't he?
Well, he had to, you see. I mean, he had to believe it was for real.
But of course, it was stage managed, but that doesn't matter, because it was theatre,
well, I mean,
drama.
There were 1 or 2 of them. I mean, dear old Mick McManus is a mate now. We play golf occasionally together, but he's about 3 inches shorter than I am, and I'm a bit of a short ass, you know. And when I think of him at that time throwing everybody out of the ring, I just wondered, you know, how it was possible he could do it. So
Cat Weasel in the striped trunks versus Mick McManus. Interesting to see if Cat Weasel starts any of his comedy tricks against McManus. McManus will really get mad early in this bout. Remember, 2 falls to decide this one.
When I first became successful, obviously, then you start to go invited to things. I was for the Lord's Taverners charity days.
Yes.
And I played cricket one day, And I used to hate Mick McManus. I used to watch him every Saturday, right? I used to hate him.
They love to hate.
Yes.
Do you remember?
And he used to punch people. The referee, like,
I know,
you punch him, and it was just get right on my nerves, I've got to tell you, because I was involved in something at snooker where nobody ever cheated. Okay, so there he was, every Saturday, punching the hell out of people on the blind side.
Yeah,
okay,
of course, yes.
Right?
But as long as it was on camera.
Of course.
How do we on camera?
How the referee was always on the blind
camera. Make sure, where's the red light? Oh, it's over there.
So there I am. All of a sudden, now I'm famous and I'm cricket. So all of a sudden, I meet Mick McManus, one of my anti-heroes, and it was a very strange experience because I met him and he's been very polite. I thought this is not right.
Oh, he's a lovely guy.
And I wanted to be nasty to him, but I couldn't be.
No.
I'm now standing in the slips with him. And we're standing in the slips together. And I'm not saying a word to him, and I'm very shy. I was quite introverted, away from the snooker circuit. So we're in the slips like that, and all of a sudden the batsman's given it a nick, and it's gone to Mick's left hand, and he was standing there, and he just got a finger to it, right, and it's just bruised it, past his finger, gone down the bottom. And he went, ow! Oh, and I've looked at it, and I'm like, this is the hard man of wrestling, and he's like, that's not effeminate, but he went, oh, because it really hurt that, right? So now I'm like this, my jaw's in a wheelbarrow, and I'm looking at him like, what's, and all of a sudden he went, well, don't just stand there, go run after and get it. And I went, oh, okay. So I've gone down to third man and thrown the ball back, and I've met, and he's such a nice guy.
He is, he's lovely.
He's a lovely bloke.
He's a real gentleman, and I don't know what he's doing of himself now, probably just retired, and he was working on the promotional side of wrestling for a long time, but I think that's gone.
Yeah, well, I suppose.
But now, of course, we have
change.
to see this American wrestling, don't we? I mean,
so how do you view that?
Oh, I can't watch it. I cannot watch it. I can't see this at all. These hulks throwing themselves around the ring.
I've got a boy of 8 and 6-year-old desperate to watch it all the time.
Well, there you are. What can you do?
So it's entertainment.
Is it good entertainment for them? Is it a good thing for them to see that? I don't know. This is going to be a constant argument and not one that we should pursue at this point.
How do you think snooker fitted into entertainment in certainly the 80s?
Well, look at the ratings. I mean, I'm talking about the one final that you lost to Dennis Taylor. How many people watched that at midnight?
Well, it peaked, I think, at 18.5 million.
You see, that's fantastic. That's amazing. And when we were doing, I mean, I did 5 tournaments a season, I suppose, the Mercantile Credit, the Yamaha, and all those. And we used to have vast audiences, very big audiences. And I wonder why it has declined. Certainly there's a lack of interest in the game. I don't know why. Although I see it on Sky, I watch it on Sky quite a lot. And I think one of the problems is that you've got so many young players coming in, and so brilliant they are. I mean, John Higgins and Stevens and Williams and people like this. But they're not the characters. We're looking back at Steve Davis, and we're looking back at Alex Higgins, we're looking at Jimmy White. Jimmy White's still there. And although maybe the slowest of all, Cliff Thorburn and Terry Griffiths, they were great characters. They had something about them. They had style. Well,
it's a very strange. So you say that from you've been outside of the game for a little while. You don't know the players perhaps like I do. Now, my theory on this character business is I personally think the characters are every bit as strong as they've ever been. There's two reasons why I think possibly that people don't think they're characters anymore. Firstly, the people that watched in the 80s are now 10 years, if not a little bit more older. So you're not going to look at younger people as having as much character as somebody who's at the same age as yourself. And
well, no, the only thing about that is that, of course, when you were playing, I mean, you were a young lad when you started.
I was characterless.
I know. Well, interesting, Steve Davis, I know that, but you built up, you had a charisma. Eventually, you had that charisma because you moved into it, you had it, you acquired it. But I mean, the guys that are playing now at the top are very young compared with the Cliff Thorburns, the Terry Griffiths in those days, and the Jimmy Whites and the Alex Higgins. But they were real characters. They were, I mean, Alex Higgins. What a character he was.
You've obviously interviewed them all in a setting.
Oh,
what were they all like to interview? You only know what you like to yourself.
Well, Alex was amazing. I mean, he'd win a match and come in for an interview, and he'd have a large glass of orange juice in front of him. He said, "Would you like to sip?" And it was probably 2/3 vodka, and that was it. But he was a very bright guy. I can remember him. Well, I saw him practice not very often, but in the morning before we actually went on air, he was doing the Times crossword and doing it without any trouble at all. Enormously intelligent guy, and when you had a chance to talk to him before he got hyped up. He was such an interesting guy to talk to. And Cliff Thorburn was an absolute gent. And when you think of the background he had in Canada, you know, shooting crap and shooting and playing for money all the time, you know, it was amazing. So they were characters. I'm not suggesting that the Higgins of this world, who is a brilliant snooker player, I love watching them, Martin Stevens and Mark Williams and that, but they don't allow themselves to show any kind of personality, do they?
Well, the other thing, I don't know if it's the case that there's so many players now that they don't get the opportunity to be interviewed so often. A bit like, so perhaps the football syndrome is that the football player hides in a team and never does an interview, so when he does an interview, he's just not practiced in it.
No, it's
perhaps
not,
we were
true.
thrown in the deep end, and we were a little soap opera, and you played the part of interviewing all the well-known. You made the characters in a way. You helped to make them.
Snooker was watched by so many people, so you were seen by so many people. You affected so many people with your personalities, and so that was understandable. And you were very, very big stars in those days.
Okay.
Now anyway, but I mean, you were really at that time. You were.
Yes, it was very big. Tell me, honest answer, right? You can't offend me whatsoever, right? I've offended you enough over the past, so even if you can get back at me. Okay, so during that time, right, and I was winning a lot of things, quite a number of people wanted to see me get beaten. Did you? And who was your favourite player? Who would you have liked to have seen beaten me? Did you want different people to win?
I didn't ever feel that. No, I didn't. I mean, I can honestly say this. I never felt that way. I mean, I love watching a sport, any kind of sport. I mean, my life's been full of sport, and I love watching sport. I don't take sides that way at all. I really don't. If someone is playing that sport to its ultimate, then I just want to watch it. You see, I used to love watching, strangely, Cliff Thorburn and Terry Groves playing. I know it was like watching paint dry for some people, but I found it absorbing because there was a bit of intellect going into it, wasn't there, too? I mean, they've got a strategy, and I could enjoy that as much as I could enjoy watching Alex and Jimmy, you know, the Whirlwind and Hurricane.
These delicate little shots don't look anything, but when cue ball and red are so close together, it's quite a delicate business not playing a push shot unless you're playing away to the side or directly away from the red.
It's the same with cricket. I mean, I love cricket too. I adore cricket. I can take so much of one-day cricket, but I sooner watch a test match, a 5-day cricket, because there is much more into it. I mean, the game is being played as it was intended to be played. You know, it's not manufactured. So I didn't ever want to see you beaten particularly. I just wanted to see a good, the best player winning.
Well, that's a wonderful attitude, I think. I mean, there's so many people seem to get carried away with their personalities.
Yes, I know.
But I mean, sport's gone that way. Do you not feel that?
Oh, it has.
So it's
getting out of hand, frankly.
Yeah.
I think it's the money that's. Can't say money's sport. I suppose in a sense, it has really. I'm not thinking of snooker at all. I'm thinking of other sports. You see, the amount of money in tennis, for example, is almost obscene. And the fight between girls and lads at Wimbledon, who gets the most, and one says, well, I only play 5, you only play 3 sets, best of 3, you play best of 5. And money rules. I mean, Mike Tyson and Francis, you know, what good has that done to boxing? No good at all.
No.
I mean, everybody knew that it was going to happen. We all knew. You must have thought it's a mismatch.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's the problem, I think. But if sport's going to go pay-per-view, it's got to be credible sport. How does that fit into?
Yeah.
You know, do you do pay-per-view for a 5-day test match?
I hope not. I really sincerely hope not, because you see, if it's pay-per-view, how do the older folk going to see it? You see, the trouble is that these sports administrators have sold themselves sometimes. I mean, I work for Sky, and I love Sky, and I watch it all the time. And if they can buy a sport, then it's in the marketplace, and if they bid highest for it, then they should have it. But I think sometimes the administrators have got a bigger responsibility than that. I mean, you've got to keep, for example, cricket on the box. Cricket's a national game, and it should be seen by as many people as possible. And if you've got Sky, then you watch it. And mind you, to be fair to Sky, there are certain tours, cricket tours, that should have been covered by the BBC, and they didn't. So if Sky hadn't covered, no one would have seen anything.
No.
And so there's that bit. But I think that money, too much money, sports, certain sports, yes, I do agree. I think, look at football. I mean, Keane is a considerable talent as a footballer. I'm not sure he's worth £50,000 a week.
It's hard to judge, isn't it? But obviously, Manchester United football ground full up all the time. But
yeah, I know. But well, there we are.
I think it's fascinating how sport changes. But snooker's remained roughly the same in a way, and the snooker players are being largely unaffected by what's happening.
Well, they look as if they come to the table. That's what I admire about snooker. They come to the table. There's no aggro at all. It's rather like golf. There's an honour among snooker players, I think, and it's the same as golf. Golf's one of the few sports, apart from the snooker, that has retained its honour all the way through. You don't cheat. No one can cheat, and I think there's a good deal of honour displayed by snooker players as well as golfers.
Sky do a great job showing television, snooker on television.
Oh.
They do a marvellous job. I tune in all the time watching golf on the television.
Yes, so do I.
But I mean, you as a presenter, were you active in sports yourself?
I play golf. Yes, I enjoy golf. It's a bit of I don't play that well. I'm a 16.9, so I play off 17, and I'm playing more often now than I used to. So I've not really had a grounding in golf, but I do like going on to golf course. I played yesterday. And with some mates, and it's a wonderful. I rode for a while. I used to have horses, and in fact we still have one. My wife rides, and I also carriage driving. Did that for a while too,
all right.
Which I enjoyed enormously. But as you get a bit older, you find if you want to play golf, we talked to the producer just before the program started. As you get older, the body is not as supple as it used to be.
Right.
And you need to turn when you're playing golf. So I had to, do 1 or 2 exercises. I'm not ancient or anything like that, but I need to do some exercises before I start playing. If I used to ride, it used to stiffen you up because your back you've got to sit right down. Your back is jolted quite a bit. So I found that was spoiling the golf, so I gave up riding horses.
In the summer months, you play in a few charity celebrity golf.
Yeah, I do. Yes, yeah.
Who's your favourite partners you play with? The
I played with Nick Faldo last year in the English Open Pro-Am. We only played night holes because the course was in badly weathered, but he was good fun. So was Fanny, his former caddy.
Yes.
Now. But I tell you, one of the most amazing experiences I had was I played in the BBC tournament, BBC Pro-Am many years ago, up in Scotland, and I played with Arnold Palmer.
Amazing.
Against Gary Player.
The two of you against him?
Richard O'Sullivan played with Gary Player, and I played with Arnold Palmer. And I tell you, I was just so nervous, I can't tell you. I mean, you're in the presence of this, well, now you use the word legend in its truest sense. He was lovely. He was such a delight. I said, Mr. Palmer. He said, you call me Arnie. And so I said, Arnie, I'm calling him Arnie.
And walking around with him?
Oh, he was wonderful.
Did he give you advice to help you?
Yeah, he did.
He got you down from 24 to 17?
Over a period of time. I was playing off 18 in those days, and we're not playing up to it at all. He was wonderful. It was a great experience. In fact, we played, I think the second hole we played was a par 3, and I got my par 3, and it was a downhill putt. I was on the green and a downhill putt, and it just went by, and I put it down for 3. And Gary Player said, "Mr. Palmer will take that ball out of the hole for you," because I won the hole with a stroke, of course. I won the hole on our team, and he said, "Mr. Palmer will take that ball out of the hole for you," and I thought it was just fantastic. I had a letter from him and from Gary afterwards, which I have framed. Enjoyed your company, Dickie, and hope to see you again.
Well, I was 28 handicapper when I played with Nick Faldo for a celebrity day, and a mate of mine said, "Oh, you're doing a golf day?" I went, "Yes." He said, "Can I caddy for you?" I went, "Yeah, Coke." So he went out and bought a proper pair of flat shoes, what he thought were good shoes for a proper golf course. We've never been on a proper golf course before. Moore Park, I think it was. So now I've got a caddy. So we're walking around, we don't know what we're doing on the first tee with Nick Faldo. He's hitting the ball for miles, I'm straight in the bushes. I got to talk to everybody on the golf course, and he's right down the middle, preparing for the next day's play. So obviously,
that's right.
He's working on his game as well, which is difficult.
That's right.
But this particular tournament, I think, was Greensomes. It was the only one score anyway. Was it Greensomes? I'm not too sure.
Well, Greensomes when you all drive and then you play alternate shots.
No, it's not. It was better ball then.
Better ball.
One score per team.
Right,
sorry.
Yeah.
And by the 12th hole, my friend and caddy said to me, will I ever be using these shoes on the greens? Never been anywhere. We were just spectators for the whole day. But a marvellous day, of course.
But what was he like? I mean, was he a good friend? Was he a pal on the golf course, Nick, or did you not see him very much?
I didn't see him.
No.
I saw him on the tee, but of course there were lots of people watching and following, so I never felt like we could have a sort of private chat because there was always people around.
I know.
But then I played a couple of games with Sandy Lyle and a few of the other golfers on less formal occasions. And I've always found the golfing fraternity to be very similar to the snooker lads.
Yes.
I don't know if you find that.
Yes, I do.
But very genuinely friendly, and they have the same problems snooker players do about technique and...
Yeah, that's true, they do. And I mean, I remember playing snooker. Do you remember we went to Sun City for the tricks?
The first ever World Trick Shot Championship, yes.
I'll never forget that as long as I live. Because it was an amazing trip. It was great. It had a strange ending, as you remember. But I played golf with Dennis Taylor and Cliff Thorburn, and the other Canadian, French Canadian.
Alan Robidoux.
Alan Robidoux. And they're all good golfers.
Yes.
I mean, Cliff played off 5. And we played both courses. And on the second course, just outside that magnificent hotel, I can't remember what it's called now, there is a pit full of crocodiles.
A par 3. If
par
you hook
3.
your ball, you're in the
Exactly.
crocodiles.
You're right. And Cliff did.
Right.
Because he normally plays well. I think it bounced on the green, came down. And we had two little guys, one caddying and one ball finding. And the ball finder went in the pit, got out with the ball before anyone saw him. We did this tournament out in the kind of Roman amphitheatre. Did you remember that?
Outdoors.
Outdoor
snooker.
Outdoor snooker. Ever
Trick
done
shots.
before?
Never done before.
And of course what they didn't realise was the lights above the thing. We were doing it at night. The lights above the thing. And all the beetles and things were flying, and there were, you were doing your trick shots, and there were flies and beetles and things on the table. It was amazing.
Well, also in South Africa, there was insects you don't get over here. There was insects with undercarriages on and bombs and everything. And I
coming and taking off and
Terry Griffiths had never seen anything like that in Wales. He didn't know what to do.
Well, it was trick snooker with a difference, wasn't it? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a unique experience. We have this remarkable Royal Amphitheatre providing a magnificent open-air setting for the Leuven World Trick Shot Championship. Coming up now, we have a challenge from a Canadian guy who won his world title back in the 80s, and he still remains the only non-British player to have won that crown.
Novel velocity. I was born and raised in Victoria, British Columbia, a very beautiful part of the world, very sports-minded, won the World Professional Snooker Championship in 1980, became the first player in the history of the World Championships to make the 1-4-7 break. I'm a 6 handicap at golf normally, and I play off 12 for money.
Welcome, Canada's dashing human, Cliff Thorburn.
I didn't trip.
You didn't? I tell you what, that's a hole down there, Cliff. Welcome.
That's great. Oh,
Thanks very much indeed. I gather we've got the balls at the right end of the table for you, not in the pockets. Is that all right?
Great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Good. Okay. Well, now, if you'd like to take up your position.
Okay. So this is a typical night downtown Hong Kong. Get out of the way there. Nail ma. Now, for those of you that think that snooker professionals aren't very good at playing bank shots or doubles, this is for you, okay? I never missed this shot and never have. Thank you.
Do you remember we were coming back to the airport?
Well, we had a great trip, but it ended under rather strange circumstances because we went back on a coach.
We did.
With
they provided the coach for us. And there was a bar on the coach. You remember?
Yes.
Organised by Sun City.
That's right. Sun City sent us sent a coach to pick us up from the hotel back to the airport.
That's
2-hour ride,
That's
and
right.
we shared the coach with 2 groups The Bootleg Beatles were one of them.
That's right.
And they were a band that were mimicking the Beatles, and they were out in Sun City because it was over the Christmas New Year period.
Great act too.
And we were all on the coach together.
And I sat with you, if you remember.
Yes.
On the front seat, driver over here, we were here, and suddenly the lights on this coach got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, didn't they? And realised that obviously the battery wasn't being recharged all the time, so the lights were going down, so the alternator was a problem, I suppose. And we eventually found our way into a garage. I mean, we were at the back and beyond, going through the brush, weren't we? And we had a plane to catch, and we knew that if we weren't going to catch that flight, then there were no seats the following day on the flight, and they were all booked up. So I don't know what happened. All I know is that the current producer of this show, and Terry Griffiths and I, managed to get alongside two guys who had this disreputable-looking van, open van, a yellow thing with rust all over it. and Marksy said, could you get us to the airport because we must catch that flight? The guy said, yes, I gave him so much money. And we sat in the back, three of us, and Terry Griffiths holding on to his queue. And we managed to get our bags out of the coach, and we made it to Joburg. And you came, I don't know what happened after that. They got the coach started, did they?
Well, it was very strange. We broke down in the middle of nowhere. It was pitch black. We all thought we were going to get murdered.
Yeah.
Because we, South Africa.
That's right.
We didn't know. We thought it was in a township. We didn't have a clue.
Could have been wild animals. You never know.
So from our situation, a really strange thing happened was all of a sudden, you're in a crisis, right? You know who your friends are, okay? Because all of a sudden, three people. When a van, I think what happened for a little while, the coach driver had said to this car, can you be our headlights? Because we'd lost headlights. So
That's right.
He said, could you be our headlights? We'll follow you. And all of a sudden, in the end, the coach just broke down. So there was a van, a pickup truck, and all of a sudden, three friends of ours, former friends of ours, quickly put their hands up and said, well, we could get to the airport. They can only carry three in the back, but there are certain people who need to get back and others don't, okay? First one up was Dickie Davies, who's gone, I have to do a show, World of Sport, on Saturday, I've got to get back. So we all thought, yeah, fair enough, okay, yeah, okay. The next person was Martin Marks, the director, okay, who had the tapes of the show.
Yeah, he had to get them back, yeah.
He says, I've got to get back to England with these tapes to edit this show because it's on the television next week. So the snooker players were, well, yeah, okay, right. And the next person to put his hand up was Terry Griffiths, who said, I'm going.
That's right.
He just said, I'm going.
You've got it in one. So we jumped ship, really, didn't we?
So you jumped ship, left us, the sinking ship, okay. Dennis Taylor and myself are going, well, that's nice, isn't it? They could have drawn straws. so the next...
What actually happened?
Well, what
you arrived about 10 minutes after we did.
But I don't... Well, what happened was the guy phoned up the coach company, and they sent another coach out. So while you were having a chauffeur-driven, admittedly in the back of a truck,
hardly chauffeur-driven,
chauffeur-driven limousine back to the airport.
Cold it was, actually, it was freezing.
I was being a roadie. Because what we had to do, we had to transfer all the luggage from one coach to the other. And of course, it wasn't just cue and case. The musicians, the Bootleg Beatles, had all their drum kit, their amplifiers and everything. And they had to get this off, and we had to do it quickly. So it was all hands on deck. Okay, and I was carrying things. I've never carried anything as heavy as a snooker cue before. So we've got all this stuff from one coach to the next. Got back in the coach. Now we're thinking we're never going to make it back here. But all of a sudden we've got back in time. So we've seen you at the airport. We can't believe we've...
They didn't want to take us. We were late anyway. They didn't want to take us on the flight anyway. We had to re-badger them to get us on. And then you all piled in, and of course that was it. That was 10 minutes after we got there.
The greatest thing about it all, of course, was that Terry Griffiths, who, as we all know, takes pride in his hair. It's always immaculate. There's never a hair out of place.
Oh, no.
After a half-hour journey on the back of this coach, his hair was all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
What am I going to do with my hair after this? I mentioned with jumping ship there, you did. Of course, perhaps that was part of your... Perhaps you went back to your old days.
Well,
you were involved with many ships.
Yes, I sailed with the Cunard Line for nearly 10 years on the ships like the Queen Mary, which has long gone. Well, in fact, it's not. It's in Long Beach, in California. It's a conference centre and a hotel now. And then on the Queen Mary, the initial Queen Elizabeth, rather.
In the Merchant Navy?
In the Merchant Navy. I was a purser.
Right, well, my father was during the war was on the Queen Mary.
My father was on the Queen Elizabeth during the war.
Well, Can you
They,
believe
well,
well,
they
just-
might. He was on the Mary for a couple of trips, I think, but of course they were carrying about 18,000 American troops in those days, and doing 30 knots across the Atlantic without convoys, and so your dad will have quite a few stories to tell.
Obviously. Obviously, there was a lot of younger people watching this. But just make sure you weren't in the war, of course, Dickie.
No, this was after the war.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. No, I'm just for the
father
younger
was there
people.
during the war.
Exactly.
No, that was after
I'm
the war.
just
Yes.
checking, making
Only
sure-
just, only just.
No, so you're in the Merchant Navy in the 50s?
Yes, throughout the 50s, and I came to television in 1960.
Okay, so but then what were you doing on the Merchant? You were red
I was
coat?
a purser. No, well,
Right.
in fact, it is redcoat. It's not unlike that. I mean, it's rather more elegant than redcoating. You know, I was an officer and I had stripes on my arm, that sort of thing. But I was eventually in charge of entertainments on the Queen Mary, and that meant that you handled the entertainments in the first-class lounge in the evening, organised the dancing, did all that, you know, the games and concerts and things like that, and fancy dress dues, and then you coordinated all the entertainment throughout the rest of the ship in the cabin and tourist class. And I remember, I mean, it was incredible because 5-day trips from New York to, and you were doing so many, you were not sure which way you were going. You were going westbound or eastbound. It was like a ferry service, to be truthful. But in those days, in the early 50s, we had all the big stars on board.
Good entertainment.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, Liberace used to travel. Noah Coward, I remember him being on board, and Bing Crosby and Hope and people like that, and Duke Ellington. And it was not impossible to say to Duke Ellington, "Will you play the piano with us?" He said, "Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to." And they'd give a concert, and they'd collect some money for Siemens charities or something like that. And it was just amazing. Liberace played the piano on one occasion, and Coward was on the same trip. And I was standing at the back. I'd introduced him, and I was standing at the back talking to Noah Coward. And he said, you know, he played for about an hour and did a kind of act without the chandelier and all that. But I mean, it was magic. And Carr said to me, he said, you know, that seemed like 10 minutes. He said, it was wonderful. I mean, Liberace was the kind of butt of so many people's jokes in those days. But those were the great days on the ships. We were very lucky. I think in many ways, I've been lucky all the way through. We've had the great days of television, and we have the great days on board ship too.
Did you ever, Joe Johnson, when he was world champion,
Yes.
did a publicity stunt and played a snooker exhibition on the QE2 while it was in port.
Yes.
And they tried to play an exhibition, and even though it was in port, the balls were still moving around enough on the table.
Well, because you see, unless you put the table right amidships in the middle of the ship, I mean, everything goes up. You know, there's a natural bend to a ship anyway.
But
People used to come to the office and say, when they had just embarked at New York or in Southampton, and they'd say, where's the snooker room? I mean, they actually did believe there could be a snooker room.
On board?
On board.
Because they're massive, they don't move at all, do they? So you wouldn't think they do anyway. You
Oh,
think
they
you could
do.
have
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, before I was on the Queen Mary, before she had stabilizers. And I can remember being in, and doing 30 knots, because you make a lot of your own movement. And I can remember the ship taking what they call a green sea over the bridge. Now that's, you know, going right down, and the water, not just the spray, the water actually coming towards the bridge. And that's about 120 feet.
So you used to host as Red, like used to coordinate all the entertainment, including the
bingo, horse racing,
bingo, and the horse racing, the horse racing, not the horse racing.
No, we used to have horse racing. We used to have put a track across, and then we used to have wooden horses, and we'd throw dice, and on the throw of the dice, the horses would move, and they'd bet, and the passengers would bet.
Did you call the numbers out, bingo?
I used to commentary. Yeah, SBS actually. I was down for a full house. Top of the house 90, all the threes 33, Rory O'Moore 44.
No fiddling though.
No, why?
I don't know.
No,
on board the ship,
actually,
the crew.
One of the most avid snooker here we are, bingo players was Phil Marshall Montgomery. He used to sit on the side of the lounge and have 4 cards for every game. He used to play 6 games. And he had 4 cards. And he'd take that table, and the lounge steward had to make sure that table was there for him. And he was an irascible old man, too. If you were talking, shouting the numbers too quickly, he would say, slow down, please, slow down. But he played all the time. So
then, all of a sudden...
We had very simple pleasures in those days, of course, you know.
No video games or computers.
No.
Did you, on the back of that, go straight to television?
Yes, I did.
Sold yourself as a...
Well, I'd had nearly 10 years, and I thought, I wasn't married, fortunately, at that time. And I thought, if I'm going to get married, a natural urge to get a family and have some kids and things. I'd have to move away from ship because you can't do that on board ship. You can't sustain a mad life, you know, when you're flying between New York and going around the world. I did on one occasion on cruises. So I was talking to an American, his name is Joe Meyer, who was with NBC, and he was setting up the administration of one of the early ITV companies. And I was talking about being a bit fed up with this, living a very rich life, but you know, it wasn't likely to make you very fit as you grew older. And he said, well, try television. He said, you've got a decent microphone manner. And so he gave me an introduction. And through that, I met Julian Pettifer, who was then working at Southern Television because he used to sail out of Southampton. And I eventually got a job as an announcer and newscaster at Southern. That's how I started in 1960.
And from then we all know World of Sport as the vehicle which made you most popular.
Yes. Yeah.
In those days, of course, the hair was slightly darker.
Yes, you see,
only slightly, but there was that little bit of grey at the front.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, what was that all about? I mean, was that?
It was. No one believed it, but it was natural. My son has got two, one there. My mother had one down there too, and it was perfectly natural. I mean, Tarby used to say, "See, you've been doing the ceiling again," and it was natural. It really was natural, and I had it from, I suppose, when I was about 35 onwards. But of course, it's spread all the way across now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Bloomsbury Centre Hotel here in London, where the Ladbroke International Snooker Tournament is about to get underway. Now, the challenge is between England and the rest of the world, and the two teams of 5 are with me, and I'd like you to meet them. First of all, representing England, and starting with their skipper, the world billiard champion Rex Williams. Supported by Fred Davies. John Spencer, John Pullman, and Graham Miles. On my left, the rest of the world, captained by the world snooker champion Ray Reardon. Assisted by Eddie Charlton from Sydney, Australia, of course. Alex Higgins from Ireland. Jack Ray, also from Ireland, of course, Jack. And from Canada, Cliff Thorburn.
When you were doing this World of Sport in those days, you sit watching things live as you were doing them, or did you ever get the chance to go to many outside broadcasts other than snooker?
Yes, I was lucky. Actually, when World of Sport finished, they decided that they would present all the big fights, and so I went to Las Vegas and I did all the Tyson fights.
Oh, of course, yes.
And then Sugar Ray Leonard and Hagler. That's one of the greatest fights I've ever seen. And also, I was lucky with the Olympics. I was in Munich for the Olympics. I introduced most of the Olympics. I went to Ottawa for the Ottawa in Canada for the World Skating Championships. Ice skating championships, and then I did gymnastics from Montreal, and so I did get a chance to move around quite a bit, but I was nearly always the anchor man in the studio.
Right, but then if you've obviously met lots of different people from different sporting worlds, do you think they're all the same people? Is a snooker is a snooker player the same as an ice skater, same as a tennis player, same as a racing driver or a boxer? Or is it just are they different strands?
I think you could say the snooker player, if you're thinking, we're talking about snooker and golf, I think there's a great similarity there. I suppose simply because it's a still ball, you know, you're both hitting a still ball. You could never say that a boxer is the same. I mean, I suppose one of the proudest moments I had was to interview Ali on 3 or 4 different occasions, and did a program with him on Atlanta Weekend, a good hour's program with him, and that was wonderful. He was a man apart, of course. He was just so special. Now there is a similarity, I suppose, in the sense that all the people that I've talked to are at the top of their sport. There is a similarity there, but I think they're quite different personalities. Quite different personalities. I always found athletes probably the most interesting people to talk to, because I think apart from the explosive events like the 100 or 200 meters, from 400 upwards, you've really got to give it a great deal of thought. Because you're going to take the body through all kinds of pain barriers quite often when you run. And you have to somehow analyze yourself and the brain has to make the body do it. And so I found that talking to athletes was usually a very interesting experience. People like Seb Coe and Steve Ovett particularly, and Mary Peters and people like that, and Lynn Davis, the long jumper. Wonderful. They're very interesting to talk to.
If you'd have been a sportsman yourself, would you have desires to be would you a frustrated sportsman, or if you had, what would you have been involved in, do you think?
I think I would probably have preferred to. Yes, I mean I love playing rugby. I played good class rugby until I went on board ship. And of course, I mean we played rugby in Japan when I was in Japan on 1958 against the Japanese Navy, and we were whacked. But I'd had to give up sport virtually playing it when I joined the Merchant Navy. I would love to have played good class rugby, really top class rugby. I'd love to have been. I was a wing three-quarter. I was quite quick, and I enjoyed that probably most of all. I enjoyed that rather more than cricket. It was rather more explosive, and I think that's the kind of character I am. I'm a bit of a, tear-ass.
But you play a bit of golf now, so
Yes, I do.
so. But then there's the individual sports, and you've chosen to be a rugby player, which is a team sport.
Yeah.
Does that say something about you, or would you not want to be in an individual sport?
I suppose you'd like to shine as an individual. I mean, I'd like to play. I would be happy to play golf at a much lower handicap than mine, but I can't do it. I mean, it's too late to do it now, I'm sure. But I just enjoy playing. I enjoy that aspect of it. I never really felt that I wanted to be a sports. That it was never the money that would have attracted me to sport at all. I didn't worry about that. I think it's just the satisfaction of doing something really well. But I love rugby. There was in those days a great camaraderie about rugby 15, which I don't know whether it exists now. I suppose it does, but they did then, and I quite enjoyed that. Do you get the same kind of kick out of playing snooker now as you did then?
I think I probably don't, and I'm not too sure why, because I still love playing. But I think as you get older, you perhaps lose a little bit of hate in your body. You lose a little bit of stroppiness, and perhaps as that goes, you're fractionally softer.
You see, I think that, to be fair, going back to what you said and your apologies and all that sort of thing, I think that to be really first class at an individual sport, there has to be a degree of arrogance about you. I think maybe in team sports too, you have to have self-belief. You really have to have that, and utter commitment and determination, and you can engender that within yourself, and so I think you do need a degree of arrogance, and I can understand as you get older that might be slightly dissipated.
Yeah, I think I've mellowed a little bit, but you've mellowed very well as well, I think, and it's been a pleasure.
I was never arrogant, I don't think.
No, I don't think you were. But
you're arrogant enough to be good at anything.
You're
really,
mellowing very nicely, and you're becoming a very good vintage, Dickie, if I may say so, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. But just before we go, you obviously do remember the World of Sport theme tune, don't you?
Dun 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 dun. I don't know the rest of it. I do know it, but I don't think the voice would stand it. Well, that's it, though.
Roughly getting on to 5 o'clock now, after the wrestling. World of Sport's closing up, and thanks very much for your company. I'm going to switch the television screen off now.
I've enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Pleasure.
Great pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, 15